everybody has the ability to connect with spirit. It's the fact that all you got to do is look at our ancestors who were using their six senses that are located at the brainstem. Before we ever had our frontal lobe, we were using basically our six senses to exist, kind of the way animals do today. They still use that. But as we grew our frontal lobe, as we grew our brain, and we began to develop speech and greater, more complex thoughts, our hindbrain and our sixth senses went dormant. We no longer needed them. So they
Yeah.
just went dormant. But they're still there. So the six senses and all those non-physical senses that once were used went dormant, but they're just below the surface. So what people can do is get back in contact with that, get in touch with their abilities.
Insight and Awareness Spiritual Explorer. Soul intuitive, emotional, and spiritual mentor and award-winning author Lorraine Nilon.
Welcome, explorers, and thank you for being part of the adventure. Today we have Chris Lippincott, and he's an international medium and a best-selling author of Spirit Beside Us, Gaining Healing and Comfort from Loved Ones in the Afterlife. So thank you for being a guest. I'm really looking forward to talking to you.
Well, thank you, Lorraine. Love being here. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, no, my pleasure. So, one thing I do want to ask you about is what is the difference between spirit and soul? Because as a
Hmm.
medium, I want to know what your perspective of that is.
That's a great question. It's something that a lot of people ask. One of the things that I take away from it is that our spirit is internal. It's within us. So, for example, when you're talking about spirit, it's the spirit essentially within. It's that spark of the divine. And if you want to think of it, it's also the conduit, the way that we're able to connect to a higher power, a higher source, a higher energy. Whereas the soul, if you want to think of it, is kind of like the mothership. Think of it as the mothership where the soul remains behind, whereas the spirit is the entity, if you will, the small capsule that will travel back and forth between the spirit realm, the mothership, the higher self, the mothership, and us. So when we think of the spirit, you can think of either the spirit incarnate within us that's inside us right now. It's, for example, when you said that person's got a lot of spirit, you can just feel their energy. The spirit's the energy. Or you can talk about the spirit discarnate, the spirit that's no longer in the physical, but has traveled back to the mothership, back to the soul. It's connected. So the soul is where there is an imprint of all energy, all existence of that particular, I'll say, personality's life throughout time, of all the different lifetimes, all the different lessons, all the things that have been learned. That's where
For
the
that
soul.
for that individual or
Right,
as a
for that,
collective?
I refer to it as a personality rather than one person, since we live so many different lifetimes.
Yeah,
So if
yeah.
you wanna talk about it as a collection of that personality's lifetimes, whatever their different names were, whatever their different existences were, it's that personality, because the personalities never really change. It's just the experiences and the way we are, going about having those experiences. So that's really what the soul is. The soul is something that's why I refer to it as a mothership, because it has all of the imprints. Some people refer to the Akashic records. It's very similar to that in that the soul is essentially what the Akashic records are talking about. The Akashic records are talking about the different existences, all the things that have been written in the past, for example. And of course, there are blank pages for lives yet to be lived. So, hope that gives you a little bit of an explanation.
Yeah, because I find that most everybody's information is very similar, but we have different ways to explain it. Different, and sometimes the terminology. We're saying everyone's saying the same thing, but then the terminology is slightly different. So I
Right.
was curious to how you perceived it, because when you're as a medium, when you're talking to someone that's, do you call them crossed over? Like a
You
how do you
can, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
you can say somebody who has departed, somebody who's crossed over, somebody who is, crossed the veil, somebody who is no longer in the physical, somebody who's in the spirit realm. You could it's all the same thing, essentially.
So when you're talking to them, how different are they from when they had a life? So if they're talking to a loved one, so it's your friend that died, how different are they from when they were?
Great question. The personality, that's what I was touching on a little bit earlier. The personality of a spirit discarnate, someone who's already crossed over, is exactly the same as they were here because our personalities never change. That's what's so amazing is that every single time they come through, their personalities are so unique that when they come through, they're immediately identified based on their personalities, which is perhaps one of the reasons why every single time I'm connecting with spirit, they're giving me their personality first. And that's one of the ways that I connect with them. And it makes me feel like I'm kind of painting them back into a sort of like a three-dimensional existence. All of a sudden, the sitter feels like their loved one is back with them because their personality is back in the room. And so when spirits coming through, they'll definitely come through most often with their personality, with the feeling of who they are. It's a sensation, it's a feeling. Whether they're gregarious, whether they're funny, whether they're outgoing, whether they're reserved, whether they're quiet, and quite often you'll get a personality who's so unique that they are immediately recognized because our personalities always stay the same no matter how long they've been gone. There was, for example, a spirit I can recall who came through. The first thing he did was he came up and he said, "Hey, would you like a pint of beer?" And I'm just dying of laughter, and that was his personality. And immediately the sitter recognized exactly who it was just based on that one phrase because you it's like when you go into a room and you immediately recognize that person just based on how they feel, how what they say. It's all that.
Yeah. And it is interesting because we understand who someone is by how they make us feel, or
Yeah,
how
exactly.
we feel them.
Yeah, when you go into a room, for example, you'll feel a person's energy. You can go into a party and you can feel the energy of the party, whether there's been an argument in that room or whether everybody's having a great time and partying and yelling and dancing and woo. You can feel the energy. It's physical.
Yeah, it is, and we ignore it a lot. Isn't it funny? Like, even when people are coming to see you, you're describing the person by how they feel, and then and how they react, and that's how we know
Absolutely.
each other,
You
and
can,
then we
for
never talk
example,
about
you
it.
can, yeah, totally. You can meet somebody for the first time and immediately have either a good feeling or a really negative feeling, and you never want to see that person again. You don't even know who they are. You may never have even heard what they said. You're just like, that person gives me the heebie jeebies.
That's true. So what does the spirit world want us to know? Like if you're working as a medium, so you're the you're the connection. So what is it the spirit world would like us all to understand?
The most common messages that come through from spirit are primarily a feeling of joy and trying to make sure that you're filling your life with joy, allowing your life to be filled with joy, live your life to the fullest, and also to try to not only love yourself, but to try to love others. And it doesn't have to be this big notion, oh, I've got to love the world. It's just loving kindness. Be kind to other people, compassion. It's the concept of, help somebody else out. Open the door, get their paper, buy the cup of coffee for the next door neighbor, help the person on the street, lend a helping hand, whatever it is. The small little things of compassion don't have to be all that big. to us, they probably don't feel like they're making a hill of beans, but to the person we're helping out, it's having a huge impact.
Yeah, that's true. How do we define where the spirit world is? Like people refer to it, is it up there? Is it how do you define the spirit world? Where is
Sure.
it?
Absolutely. Good question. Uh, you can even go back to quantum physics, which, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. But at one point, I was sort of playing around with quantum physics, learning about it. Um, where the spirit world is since we're all energy, and there really is no boundary to where energy exists. While spirit, we can call it, we were talking about spirit incarnate versus spirit discarnate. There's the physical element where we're at a lower vibration that kind of keeps us at a lower existence, a lower plane. And then as you get to subsequently higher vibration rates, you're getting to subsequently higher planes of existence. And it's essentially something where those planes of existence are the construct of the spiritual realm. And people think, oh, well, the spirit world or heaven or whatever name they want to attach to it, it's got to be up there in the clouds. It's up there somewhere. Conceptually, that makes sense because we're talking about the increasing vibration rates, but that's just from a concept. In reality, we're sharing the energy, we're sharing the space with the spirit world. They're just at a slightly elevated existence. So spirit could be on either side of me, on either side of you, they in the same room. It's just a question of, can we see them? Can we feel them? Or do we know they're there? And at what level do they exist? And then when you
Yeah.
begin to talk about the spirit realm proper, that's when you get into all the different levels. That's when you start talking about the different vibration rates. How do people get into those different levels? And that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, it's a big topic. I always try to simplify it for people. It's like, when your dog can hear different sounds that you can't hear,
100%.
it's the
Yeah,
same thing. There's energy around you that you can't see, but it's still there. It's just,
exactly.
yeah, you're not aware of it.
Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Can you see
Yeah.
gravity? No, but you sure know it's there.
Yeah,
Thank
true.
God.
With your book, Spirit Beside Us, why did you write the book and what is it that you wanted people to know?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, the book was written essentially about 3 or 4 months from start to finish. It started out. I just wanted to start writing something that would get some of my experiences and some of my ideas out. I thought it was just going to be a nice project. It turned into a much bigger um,
They always
end
do.
end result than I ever imagined it to be. So
Yeah.
it didn't start out as much. And when I gave a manuscript of my book to one of my mentors, they looked at it, they read it, and they came back to me and they said, "You do realize that most of this was written by spirit automatically. You do realize that." I'm like, "Oh, that explains why it was so fast."
Yeah, that's impressive.
um, so the primary topic started toward the end as I started putting the finishing touches on it. I became much more aware from spirit that it was a product that spirit wanted to get it out to the world, to raise the spiritual awareness, to raise the vibration, to make people feel more comfortable with the spiritual existence. Because one of the things that I'm always told is, "Oh, wow, you're just a regular guy." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not coming from the Hindu Kush or anything." And that's one of the things that I think spirit is. I'll refer to them as using me because they're trying to get their idea out. They're trying to get their message out. They're trying to get their concept of greater spiritual awareness to humanity, to raise the vibration of humanity. So that's kind of that's the mission I kind of picked up from them. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. I'll do it.
Yeah. And what do you think people's greatest confusion is about spiritual awareness?
I think a lot of people are still confused that it has to be so difficult and few people can do it. And, oh, I'm not capable of doing that. And only a few special people can do that. I mean, look at me. The proof is in the pudding. I'm just, like I said, I'm just a regular guy who kind of stumbled into it. I grew up in an agnostic household. I came from, corporate America. I'm a materialist. And, I had a spiritual awakening. And next thing I know, I'm doing 180 degrees the opposite direction. Everybody has the ability to connect with spirit. It's the fact that all you got to do is look at our ancestors who were using their six senses that are located at the brainstem. Before we ever had our frontal lobe, we were using basically our six senses to exist, kind of the way animals do today. They still use that. But as we grew our frontal lobe, as we grew our brain, and we began to develop speech and greater, more complex thoughts, our hindbrain and our sixth senses went dormant. We no longer needed them. So
Yeah.
they just went dormant. So, but they're still there. So the six senses and all those non-physical senses that once were used went dormant, but they're just below the surface. So what people can do is get back in contact with that, get in touch with their abilities, and we use these senses every day. I mean, everybody's got intuition, everybody's got that gut instinct. That's
Yeah.
clairsentience. That's coming from the solar plexus. So everybody's using it, but they just don't think of the fact that they're actually using their clairsentience.
Yeah, I was, like when I have sessions with people, they feel, I'll go, I'm reading the energy. You'll feel like pressure in your head, or, you'll feel something on your chest. And it's a rare person that doesn't feel it. And then I go, you're feeling those things all the time. It's just that you ignore them. You're not,
Right.
your attention's not on them, but you're,
No.
you're energetically changing and moving all the time. So when you pull your
Right.
awareness to it, you, you start, which is the starting point for everything. You pull your
Exactly.
awareness
Yeah,
to
and
it.
and that's the thing. Many people are, that's kind of the other thing I think they were trying to get me to let the world know, is to have people become more in touch with their own spirit, because so many people are just sort of, they've got blinders on. They're thinking of the material world, they're thinking of their material existence, and that's all there is. um and a lot of people think, okay, well, once my body is done, I'm food for the worms and that's it. But
Yeah.
there's so much more.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Which is a lot easier for someone like you that's talking to the people that have left the planet. So there's, that it's hard for you to deny that. So
Yeah,
so when you
exactly.
said
And
that you had like a spiritual awakening and you're in corporate, that would have been a big turning point for you.
yeah, it was, no
Putting that
doubt.
plainly.
Yeah, it was kind of like hit me square between the eyes, because there was, I mean, when I was really young, I don't know, probably 6, 7 years old. I was in contact with everything. I was connecting with the trees and the animals and having a grand old time. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm just an only child, imagining all this stuff. And there'd be times where I'd go to bed, and I'd hear voices in my room. Of course, I'm the only one in my room. Parents are at the other end of the house. Nobody else. I'm like, oh, monsters are coming to take me away, right? Or I'd sometimes I'd be on my stomach trying to go to sleep, and I'd feel a hand on my back that I really thought I was getting taken to their lair, right? So I'm really freaking out, or I'd feel energy getting wrapped around me, and none of the, and as a 6 year old, I had no idea what was going
Yeah.
on. I thought it was just monsters coming to take me away, and so I was, freaking out, and I just said, no, 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 no. Eventually, so I just shut it down as best I could for whatever, like 20, 30, whatever years. Of course, I was turning into a grown man who was still deathly afraid of the dark, because I always felt there was something around me. I just
Yeah,
didn't know
right.
what was going on. And it wasn't until I was, getting really, really stressed out at work. And I was taking out all the stress out of my family. It was just getting worse and worse. And eventually I'm just like, I got to find a way to, deal with this. So people were suggesting, like meditation, and I'm like, oh, I can't do meditation. Don't I have to wear a turban and sit cross-legged and do all that kind of funny stuff? It's not for me. But then I ran across an audio track that was really kind of mellow, didn't have any agenda. And I'm like, oh, wow, I can get used to this. It's pretty cool. So I listened to this audio track that was very calming, very relaxing, for about 15 minutes every day before I'd go to work. Sometimes I'd do it on the weekends. And I was just like, I'd do it constantly. And I didn't really realize what I was doing. I just felt relaxed and it was really nice. And I would do that for about 12 months every day. And it was at that 12-month period, I'm in my man cave because every guy's got to have his man cave, right? And it's on a Saturday morning, and I can remember sitting in my, armchair, and I'm just zoning out. And all of a sudden, I'm in my mind's eye seeing these silhouettes of four people, two on my left, two on my right. I'm like, who are these people that I'm sort of seeing? I recognize them, but I didn't know who they were. Um, and they're the one all the way off to my right hand side was sort of like the tallest, biggest, felt more powerful. And all of a sudden, like he's shooting the beam of energy straight through my chest, out through my back. I'm like, whoa, I guess I'm not asleep, am I? What is going on? And that's kind of when I felt like I was having an outer body experience. I was kind of, I don't know, felt like I was just sort of like in the universe somewhere, connecting to this tapestry of love and energy that just kind of went on without end. Didn't have any beginning, didn't have any ending. And I was kind of like the thread in this tapestry. Everything was connected. Um, and I just remember feeling this overpowering sense of unconditional love and acceptance just for being, existing. And I remember at one point of feeling almost hearing like, you're perfect. And I was like, wait a second, you don't know what I've done in life. I sure am not perfect. But it just kept on coming. And I'm like, and that's kind of when I'm like, something's happening here. And then eventually I kind of came out of it. I had to sort of reel for about 10 minutes or so to figure out what just happened, run to my desk, write it all down. Then after that happened, all of a sudden I started having those same sensations I had when I was a kid. The energy, the voices, the sensations of people, beings around me. Um, it was kind of like the portal reopened all over again. And it just started to accelerate more and more. I didn't really know what was going on, but I kind of had a suspicion, something about spirit or energy, or so I started trying to research it and understand it. And eventually, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going beyond me. This is for like a bigger purpose here. Let's figure this out. And eventually, I started finding out, oh wow, maybe there's this thing called mediumship. I can't be a medium. I'm just a muggle. No, I can't do that. But eventually, I started learning it, understanding it, because I trying to figure it out. How can I channel it, control it, make it work better? And over time, it just started to take on a life of its own. So I was just
Y-
like, wow.
That's impressive. Yeah. Actually, it's interesting because most of us have a story where the unexpected happened. Like I can remember sitting on a end of my bed feeling really depressed and just, when you're having those moments of like, oh God, what am I doing? And this lightning bolt hit me. And I can remember just feeling really calm and I heard just lay down and rest. But it's like I've never experienced it again.
No.
And it's very hard to describe. Like I struggle to give it words because I can't quite explain it.
Yeah, that was the other thing, and I'm glad you brought that up because I was feeling something that I couldn't put words to, and as I went back to it, it dawned on me that I was feeling the concept of love, that the human word love is only the top 1% of the iceberg that you might see. What I was feeling was the other 99% below the waterline that you can't see. This was the other 99%. And I was like, wow, because like the
Wow.
human word love just was like nothing in compared
Yeah.
to this.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I could tell when you were talking, you could see the feeling coming back to you, that it was such a profound
Yeah.
moment in time for you, so
Yeah.
you light up a bit when you're talking about it, which is a good thing, that's a good
Yeah,
thing.
sure.
So I'm gonna ask you that we ask all our guests, what does humanity need to acknowledge and understand for us to evolve?
Mm. One of the first things that humanity has to understand in order to evolve is the understanding that we create our existence. We are living an illusion in the here and the now as we exist, and that we create that illusion, but we also create our future. We create where we go, for example, in the spirit realm, our energy, all of our actions, our intentions, our thoughts, whatever it is that we're doing now, we're creating a vibration, we're creating an energy. And it's that vibration, that energy that will take us to a specified place based on that vibration because like attracts like. And so we'll basically create our own future home based on the vibration we're creating now. And that seems to be the biggest, most important sensation that I'm always getting. And so that ties into the concept of love. If we're able to not only learn to love ourselves, but love other people through loving kindness and compassion, as you're helping other people, that's creating a massive vibration. That's creating a massive energy. And that love and compassion and kindness and energy creates a beautiful existence, not only in the now, but also in the future.
Yeah, it creates a ripple, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice answer. So when people are coming to see you as a medium, what are they looking for? What are they
Mhm.
what are they searching for?
Most of the time, people, a they want some kind of closure. They want some kind of acknowledgement. Oftentimes, they want to know that their loved one is okay, that they're at least not suffering because they just want to know that things are okay, that they're not feeling any pain, they're not feeling any discomfort, that whatever might have been ailing them before is not hurting them now. Of course, it's not because they don't have a physical body. They want to know that they're happy. They want to know that perhaps they still love them. They want to know that they're receiving love, um, or they want to know, what's it like? Are you okay? Do you still care about me? And so it all revolves around that concept of closure. Are you okay? Do you love me? Were things left unsaid? And all that starts to come through towards the end when the messages start to come through, whether that's a message of love, it's a message of forgiveness, it's a message of apology sometimes, whatever the message might be, the spirit always comes through with whatever is needed. It's kind of like the Rolling Stones. You don't always get what you want, but you'll always get what you need.
Well, so do you think when people are talking to their loved ones that have crossed over that they hear them?
Some people do hear them themselves, and when, quite often, spirit will said, they'll go like, "You don't need the stinking medium. You and I can talk directly."
We got a direct line.
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
I get asked that a lot, people ask me, when I'm talking to mum, "Can she hear me?" And I'm
Well, they
like,
can absolutely. They can absolutely. That's one of the beautiful things is that spirit, because they're able to use non-physical senses, since they're not physical, they're able to use all of the psychic senses that most mediums are using. The clairaudience, their claircognizance.
well, that's actually really interesting, and I think it gives people a lot of comfort when they do feel that their loved ones still are aware of them and keeping an eye on them and still loving. The love doesn't go.
No, no, that's definitely one of the things because the entire, as I kind of mentioned before, is that all of the spirit realm essentially is all about love. That's the sort of the like I mentioned, it's kind of the thread that is the glue that constructs the spirit world. It's just different levels of love. Whether you're at the lowest level where it's a lack of self-love, or you're at the highest level where it's just immense love for everything in existence.
Yeah, yeah.
It's different
And that
degrees.
different exactly. And that's what I class as spirituality too, is learning to understand yourself, deal with whatever is left to be dealt with, whatever's unresolved within you, and coming to that place where you start being a source of love for yourself, that
Right,
you do have that compassion, care, kindness, not only for others, but also for yourself.
right.
Yeah. I think it's time to play Flip the Book. So, would you like to pick book one, two, or three?
I'm called the book too.
Book two. Okay, so that's interesting. That's Breaking Free from the Chains of Silence. Now, we only use the back of the book because it has has part of your true essence in it. So something that's important for you. So what we pull up from here will be something that is very personal to you and very much part of your true essence. So could you give me a number between 189 and 215?
213.
213. So you have 4 paragraphs to pick from. Which would you like? One,
4.
4. Okay, so this actually comes under the heading of truthfulness. So truthfulness would be important to you. Being mistaken does not mean you were deceptive. It means you were lacking in understanding and knowledge. Deception is done for a purpose which alters others' ability to trust the accuracy of what you convey. Deception creates doubt, doubt fuels fear, and fear often counteracts the value of truth. This leaves fear and the desire for control to be the governing factor over your decision making, which can leave you devaluing your own resonance with truth and the integrity of your soul. Deception is a choice to deceive. Truthfulness is a choice to acknowledge reality. So, where does that take you?
I love that because that talks about truth and the entire concept of truth. You can expand to spiritual truth. And what is spiritual truth? The spiritual truth is encompassing everything about all the different spiritual laws, whether that's the law of attraction or the law of sowing and reaping, which kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. Is everything that you put out is what you're going to receive. Remember, we were talking about as you create, that is what you are going to receive. You create high vibration. You create tremendous compassion. You create wonderful high vibrations of love and kindness. That's what you're going to receive in the spirit world. So that's sort of that entire combination of the law of attraction, because you're going to attract yourself to that vibration, but you're also going to receive that as from, sowing the seeds of kindness and compassion. You're going to receive the benefits and the end result of compassion, which is one of the reasons why we always hear the phrase, it is better to give than receive. One of the reasons why it's so much better to give is not only do you feel wonderful when you actually give love and compassion and kindness, but you're expanding your entire being. You're growing. You're creating this beautiful vibration. So when you think about truth, you think about spiritual truth. And what is the spiritual truth? Is that everything that you're seeing around you is the illusion of the ego mind that you're actually creating in your own existence, because the mind can create whatever it wants.
Mm. And it can use any source to create it. So if you've got
Absolutely.
unresolved emotions or fears or negative self beliefs, that's what you're going to create your perception from.
Right.
So,
Right.
which alters, if you're stuck with a misconception and you're creating from a misconception, then it's going to have that deceptive tone to it
Right.
because
And
it started.
I think you were also talking about the phrase deception as being something of an untruth told for a reason. But don't forget, you can also be deceiving yourself.
Oh, most of the time we do.
Yeah,
You know what
there
I
you
mean?
go.
Yeah, most of the time we do. Because I think that anyone such as yourself as a medium or any really intuitive skills, we all go through that stage where we fear that it is deceptive. We have to really look at it. We have to if you want to come from integrity and authenticity, you're going to be confronted with that belief, and you've got to go through, I call it the tunnel, but you've got to go through that tunnel and really work out what resonates with you. And I think
Mhm.
as people are dealing with lots of stuff, and even those that are doing the journaling, is that you can start somewhere and it'll take you to the truth. So you can start with a denial and it'll take you to the truth if you keep requesting truthfulness from yourself. If you
And
decide that's what you want to understand,
yeah,
it'll present itself.
it's interesting. You also talked about the tunnel. As soon as you said the tunnel, the first thing that I began to become aware of it's also you are going through a gauntlet of fire where you're burning off the
Mm,
and you're burning off all that you no longer need, so that by the end of this journey you have become cleansed, as it were, so that you now know the truth. You now are much more clear about what it is that you need to know, who you are, where you're going, and what the ideal reality is.
yeah, and realize that those walks that you've done to discover that, you don't have to hang on to them anymore. They're done. They're burnt.
Right.
They're, yeah. So
It's all been
which is
burned away.
burned away. Yeah, you're left with the wisdom, the understanding. So which is a beautiful thing. We all love that.
Right.
I want to thank you for being on the show. I've really appreciated the conversation.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. It was wonderful being here.